The birth certificate of Dwayne Johnson and Danny Garcia's new XFL being signed and dated Saturday, February 18th at 3 p.m. as Vegas takes on Arlington. Renegades, the short home favorite here, although the Vipers have been in Arlington the last 5 or 6 weeks as well. I think a slight home field edge will still exist here in Choctaw Stadium for Renegade fans. And between those fans and then the Renegades being familiar with this surface at Choctaw Stadium, I think that's why the line is 2.5 here. On the home sideline, a familiar name, Bob Stoops, back after a 2-3 stint here in 2020. Listen, college football became the love of my life, in part due to this man. I mean, he pulled the Sooners out of hell, and they've thrived for about 2 decades now because of it. Brent Venables still working on some things early in his tenure, but think about Oklahoma football before Bob Stoops. Really nothing. If you think about him and Mac Brown going against each other back in the day, it's just a chilling thing to think back to how important Bob was to college football. But it's not Mac Brown or Bill Snyder that he's going to be looking to cross the sideline from in this one. It's Rod Woodson that gets that honor. The gold jacket Rod Woodson. In fact, he may be, I think, the only NFL Hall of Famer to be a coach, if I'm thinking correctly. I can just see that black and gold 26 jersey hanging in my old man's closet, a Steeler legend. Vegas, though, rolling the dice here on Rod. First-time head ball coach. But what do they say in Vegas? Scared money don't make money. So Rod Woodson's going to coach the Vipers. Let's take a look at the Arlington offense against the Las Vegas defense. Co-offensive coordinators Jonathan Hayes and Chuck Long back together after their 2020 run in St. Louis. That's important for you to know. Some might say Stoops couldn't beat him, so he hired him. Again, all these guys go way back, though. Stoops and Chuck Long, they go way back to their Iowa days. I think Jonathan Hayes played for Bob Stoops at Oklahoma, so I was confused in 2020 when all of them ended up in different places, but you'll see a lot of imports from the 2020 St. Louis Battlehawks coming to Arlington. Rick Mueller and staff built one hell of a roster here for the 2023 Renegades. It's kind of a spring ball all-star squad of sorts. You have wide receiver Jordan Smallwood. He was a 2020 breakout star. Early reports saying that first-year pro Drew Plitt is actually going to pilot the Renegades attack this year. That surprised me because you do have Kyle Sloter and Sal Cannella, who were called up from the B League, and they're the spring ball equivalent of Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle, the way I see it. So I was surprised to see a report on XFL.com that said, kind of indirectly through an article, that Drew Plitt was going to get first-team reps. I think they might go with a little bit of a 2-quarterback system in Arlington. We'll see what Jonathan Hayes and Chuck Long do, but I do think you're going to see Drew Plitt rolled out first. Hayes used to coach tight ends, so you need to know about tight end Sal Cannella. He will be a force. The backfield is stacked as well. Davion Smith led XFL 2020 in rushing, but hide the chicken salad. Keep it away from Smith. He doesn't like it. He'd rather pizza. Don't sleep on Adrian Killens. He was kind of a late ad, was traded over from the Roughnecks. Little bit of thunder and lightning going on, I think, with Smith and Killens. And then you also have Keith Ford, who was a bruiser back in 2.0 for St. Louis. So a deep unit here in the backfield. I could see a balanced attack here from Hayes and Chuck Long. I think they can block anybody in the league with these 5 up front. This is a solid front, except maybe one guy, and that's Vic Beasley. Yes, that's the same Vic Beasley who terrorized NFL quarterbacks with 15.5 sacks in 2016. Just was a force to be reckoned with. I think he made the top 100 NFL players list just his sophomore season in the NFL. I don't see anyone remotely matching up to number 44, Vic Beasley. He joins former Penn State run stuffer Rob Windsor in the front 7. We're going to rep all the Nittany Lions here in the XFL. That's going to be a theme of this show, by the way. For defensive coordinator Chris Dishman in Vegas, his Jersey Generals had the top run defense over in Birmingham, so that's something to keep in mind. I do give the Renegades the edge in this area. I think it starts and ends up front in this league, just like anywhere you play football, and this is the best offensive line on paper. Shout out to Jonathan Heimbach, their offensive line coach, an original member of the XFL 2001. How cool is that to have him come back? So great staff on offense. Now let's look at the Las Vegas offense against that Renegade D. Dwayne Taylor, a name you might not know yet. He was one of many SWAC mainstays that is now joining the XFL 3.0. He heads the Vegas offense. Joey Clinkscales put together one of the most experienced units in the league. I kind of like the way that Vegas approached this draft, especially in the pass game. If you throw on NFL Red Zone back in November of 2017, you'd see these guys, right? Martavis Bryant, Brett Hundley, Geronimo Allison. These were guys that were active in the NFL. I think Brett Hundley at one point was doing his best to relieve the best quarterback in the solar system, Aaron Rodgers. And Martavis Bryant was lighting up opposing corners all day in Pittsburgh. So you're going to see them connecting in this offense unless Hundley can't win the job. Now, there were reports that came out that Brett Hundley was paid $200,000 to play in the XFL. Now, most players in this league making around $60K with the option to make another $1,000 per win, and then also have the ability to have their housing provided and meals, so insurance, a lot of benefits. But Hundley, almost 4 times what the normal XFL player and starter was going to get. So I was surprised to see a report that potentially Luis Perez could be starting on Saturday for Vegas, kind of on both sides, right? I didn't think Plitt would start for Arlington. I didn't think Perez would start for Vegas, but Luis Perez in his own right, many accolades. He's played in every spring league under the sun, been referred to as Mr. Spring Football. He had a stint with the New York Guardians back in 2020 when Matt McGloin was benched. And I really do think Luis Perez is more poised to lead this offense at first. And remember, Brett Hundley got to camp super late because Brian Scott was supposed to run this offense, and then he was cut. So Hundley was a late add. It'll be interesting to see. I think ultimately Hundley is going to win that job. But let's look a little bit more into this matchup. Like I said, Geronimo Allison, I mean, he was a solid 4th option for the Packers. I think he was right behind Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson, and Randall Cobb in Green Bay. Had a decent season in 2017 and 18. Co-defensive coordinators Jay Hayes, the brother of Jonathan, and Tim Lewis are teaming up to run this Renegade defense. So we talked a little bit about that Vegas. Let's look at the Arlington D. They have linebacker Donald Payne, and he was a first-team all summer leaguer. And they also have Devontae Bosby. They were both great in that league. This is a big body veteran wide receiver group, so I'm interested to see how that Arlington defense, especially the secondary, is going to match up. I think Will Hill III is a name you're going to know if you don't already. 6'3" safety for Arlington. So, again, I give the Renegades the edge even on this side of the ball. This is the one defensive back room with Bosby and Josh Hawkins and Will Hill that I think can match up with Las Vegas's playmakers on the outside. So I am going to take the Arlington Renegades here to beat the Vegas Vipers. Zook, who you got? Your first ever pick on the Boulevard. Make it count.
Yeah, I know. I'm taking the Renegades as well. I think Vegas is the bottom of the league.
Wow.
So
okay,
that's where I'm going.
Mikey's not going to want to hear that.
I'm sure he isn't.
Rocking with the hometown Vipers, I assume he is. This will be an interesting one. I think the XFL did a good job of putting some of the most recognizable names and faces on the top of the card here. I don't think The Rock's going to be here for this one. We'll get to which game he's heading to, but this will be one of the most exciting games of the weekend.